Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to all, and thank you for being with us. I'm Carlos Jaramillo, Chairman for the Tijuana EDC, and today we're going to focus our discussion in the opportunities we have as a region to become a major hub for innovative industries such as biomed and IT. And for this purpose, we have invited three outstanding leaders to share their vision of this technology hub in the San Diego Tijuana region. We have Michael Malone with us, author of the San Diego Tijuana, the Third Country book. Gustavo de la Fuente, director of Smart Border Coalition, and Maritza Diaz, our Tijuana EDC board member and leader of the Commission for Emerging Industries and also CEO of Tijuana. And for this, our female leader of the technology industries, Maritza. I would like to, if you can help us with some opening remarks today.
Excellent. Thank you, Carlos, and welcome everyone. Maritza Diaz, I am super excited to be here. I've been a member of Tijuana community for a long time, but most recently, I am honored to be leading this new commission, which really our objective is to show a new face of Tijuana as a tech hub, particularly in the industries of biotech, medtech, and technology. Unfortunately, we always have to talk about COVID because COVID has taught us many lessons. And from where I stand, COVID taught us that the digital transformation that many companies had in their mind for 2030 is no longer 2030. It accelerated to 2020. It taught us that companies that aren't digitally ready do not survive, period. So all of this has in turn generated or increased the need for digital talent. Prior COVID, there were about 250,000 open jobs for software just in the US, jobs that we couldn't fulfill because we do not have enough engineers in school. That was a big problem, 250,000 jobs. After a year, after COVID, that number is now over 1 million. You see, this problem with talent is getting worse. And unfortunately, we in the US still are not ready, prepared to have all of this new talent available. So it really is generating a fight for talent. Now, the way I see it, Tijuana and San Diego have a very unique opportunity to compete for the future. The World Trade Center in San Diego just released their updated plan for Global San Diego, which is a series of strategies to make sure that San Diego continues to compete in a global market. Two of those strategies are relying in Tijuana, its neighbor. San Diego has a focus on few industries that are flourishing during COVID. Biotech, med device, technology. And I used to say in the past, Tijuana and San Diego should be the new Silicon Valley. But I don't say that anymore. Silicon Valley is the Silicon Valley, is in the Bay Area and will be there. However, San Diego and Tijuana should be the BioMed Tech Valley of the world. We have everything we need. We have the concentration, we have the innovation, we have the means, and we have the people. So I'm very excited to see where this new journey leads us. I think to close with COVID again, let's focus on healing. Our region can absolutely heal from this horrible pandemic if we leverage strengths of both sides of the border. Let's focus on these industries that are strength, biomed, tech. And today here we are going to talk about how we see that happening. It's not new. We've been leveraging tech talent in Tijuana for many years. I personally have hired many amazing software engineers, and I see the future of Tijuana in the technology space. So with that, really looking forward to have a good conversation and hear thoughts from the panel here. And I'm going to pass it now on to Gustavo de la Fuente, Director of the Smart Border Coalition.
Thank you, Maritza. Before we go to Gustavo, I want to acknowledge your leadership in this emerging industries. You are our ambassador in these topics with San Diego, and thank you for that. Thank you for being with us. And before we go to Gustavo and do a formal introduction to our keynote speaker, we're gonna go through a Tijuana EDC video to share with everybody, and then we're gonna go to you, Gustavo. Thank you again.
Today is the day to create something new, to envision new possibilities, a new network environment, disruptive technology, and new business opportunities. It is time to become a pioneer of this new era. We have what is required: talent, learning ability, and agility to adapt and create new technologies to lead entire industries. The CaliBaja mega region represents a combined market of $255 billion with a population of over 7 million. California is well recognized as the biggest biotechnology cluster, and Baja California as the medical device capital of North America. The electronics industry is one of the most representative of our region, with a success record of more than 50 years of constant development and evolution, creating one successful business case after another. We are ready and able to join in reimagining and creating a better future. Are you in?
Well, with that, we will pass now to Gustavo to introduce formally our keynote, Michael.
Thank you very much, Carlos and Patricia, for the fine work that you're doing at the Tijuana EDC. I get really excited I get goosebumps actually out of that video. I've seen it a couple of times, but every time I see it, it's just, it's a phenomenal contribution that you are making, and not just from the standpoint of a video, but you're doing many things, new things for the region. So I am the executive director of the San Diego Tijuana Smart Border Coalition. We are a unique binational, and I would say bilingual organization that advocates for more efficient border crossings through our ports of entry. And though we all know, of course, that smooth crossings are the lifeblood of our binational region, we realize that a smart border is not just about innovation or even better management of our ports. It's also about telling a story, telling our story in a much more coherent way that rallies people around this narrative. And I think this has been Michael's contribution to our region in the form of El Tercer País. San Diego and Tijuana, 2 countries, 2 cities, 1 community. This is the first and only book that tells the story of the Tijuana-San Diego relationship. It's a book that was sponsored by several board members of the Smart Border Coalition. So Michael is a Silicon Valley-based journalist, author, and educator. He's actually the world's first daily technology reporter for the San Jose Mercury News, for those of you who are familiar with publications in the Bay Area. He's been an investigative reporter, a columnist for the New York Times, editorial writer and blogger, and he's also been the host of 3 public television series. As an author, he has published more than 24 books, including award-winning works on Intel and Hewlett-Packard, as well as the landmark bestsellers, The Virtual Corporation, and of course, El Tercer País, which I just mentioned. He is also co-founder or founding shareholder of multiple companies, including eBay. He is currently Dean's Executive Professor at Santa Clara University. He's a former fellow of Oxford University and currently a distinguished friend of Oxford. I think for us in the region, Michael's contribution has been a godsend. And the question before us is, which chapters are we going to write together to make our region thrive more than it ever has? So with that, Michael, take it away.
Well, thank you for the very nice introduction, and I'm honored to be here. I have to admit, I'm a bit humbled with the knowledge that I'm going to be talking about the San Diego Tijuana region to people who live there, who everyone on this call obviously knows more about the subject than I do. And then I'm going to be talking to experts in the Internet of medical things, a technology that is so far in the future that I haven't even written about it yet. So I'm going to try to come in as an outside observer and as an old journalist and open up my reporter's notes to give you some of my thoughts today. I'll begin with, I want to talk about the region first, then we'll get into the technology and the challenges there. I think Ms. Diaz said something very important, that the San Diego Tijuana region has a singular future, a destiny, and it's up to you guys to decide if you want to grasp for it or not. But I do believe, honestly, after studying the area, writing about its history, writing about the impact of the last 40 years by people, two of them are on the call right now, Malone Burnham and Jose Gallico, who created a fundamental social and cultural revolution, political revolution at the border, at San Diego and Tijuana, two cities that have been tied together in a destiny they didn't want to admit for 100 years, but now finally have embraced that reality and are racing forward. And if there's a single message in my talk today, it's that keep going. You guys have a chance to be one of the most important business communities on earth. And it won't take that much. You've done most of the hard work. The next 20 years will decide your fate, but it's extraordinary. It's unique. It'll be a historic achievement, singular for the 21st century, and a model, a paradigm for everywhere else. So let's investigate that a little bit. There are having grown up in Silicon Valley, having written about Silicon Valley for 40 years, I have a unique sense of how a community develops. When I got here, it was orchards. There were a couple large companies. There was Stanford University in Santa Clara, orchards. Now it's the economic engine of the world in many ways. It's the heartland of the digital revolution. Well, why did that happen? And why haven't other communities been able to create their own successful Silicon Valley? Not like this one. Well, I think there are several prerequisites, and I want to take those and map them over into your area, into the Southland. Okay, the first one is talent. There's a lot of talent that came to California after World War II, the GI Bill, men who had shipped out to the Pacific saw how beautiful the West Coast was, and they said, if I survive, Iwo Jima, I'm coming back and I'm going to live here. A strong university, young people, and isolation. This, in a sense, this is the thing that most communities don't see when they try to build their own Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley was forgotten. It was a corner of Northern California, 3,000 miles away from Washington, D.C. And you had a bunch of independent, plucky entrepreneurs who were happy that Washington didn't notice them. Well, interestingly, I've noticed in Tijuana the same kind of situation. First of all, you have a huge community that has not fully fulfilled all of its opportunities. It's got a huge amount it can grow. Second of all, you've got a young community. You have enormous amounts of entrepreneurial talent. You have a cultural history of entrepreneurship and craftsmanship. And you've got some great universities. They're on the other side of the border, but they're right there leading the world in medical technology and stem cell research. Thanks in large part to Mr. Burnham, right, on this call. So all of that's there. And the thing I discovered coming down to Tijuana is Mexico City likes to pretend you don't exist. Silicon Valley's on the far corner of the United States from Washington, and San Diego and Tijuana on the far corner, even further corners of both countries. And this is an advantage. You don't have the government interfering. You can set your own rules and reality, and you can pursue your goals with a minimum amount of interference. When you're successful, that interference will come inevitably. But right now, you've got some running room to try new things and to experiment and to take risks. Now, let's look at some of the reasons why you are so important to the world right now. First of all, you have two cities on opposite sides of the borders, two different cultures that are cross-pollinating on a continuous basis, and more as the border opens up and the freedom of movement increases. That's a powerful thing. Second, you have the Maquiladora movement. You are building the world's devices, particularly medical devices. I mean, I always stun people by saying, you know, that stent you just had put in, made in Tijuana. That pacemaker, made Tijuana. You're driving a Toyota truck, again. You are starting to build the world, and you have some distinct advantages. You're in the same time zone. You don't have the shipping challenges that, say, Vietnam or India or Brazil have relating to, you know, the United States and North America and Europe. This is a distinct advantage that you're in the same time zone as Silicon Valley. I hear that mentioned all the time. I'm not sure you realize that that's a distinct advantage you have. Plus, you have this precedent now that you've created, thanks to the two men on this phone call, in large part, that you're accelerating the process of movement back and forth across the border. And the smoother you make it, the greater your opportunities are. The dream, I think, should be, it sounds like an insane goal, but insane goals are what great business communities pursue. And in this case, when we can start driving across that border without even slowing down, and we have the technology to do it, when that happens, when the trip across the border, when the trip to Tijuana is as easy as the trip to Escondido from San Diego, then something profound is going to happen. The world is watching you do this. And I think the more you pursue this, these great men and women, housewives, all the way up to civic leaders like Malone and Pepe Gallico here, they've set the precedent. If you can keep moving it forward, something amazing is about to happen. You're about to create a super sovereign region. And I say that, I use that phrase very carefully because I do believe the destiny of the two cities is to begin to create a super government that deals with both sides of the border, both cities, and rises above the quotidian reality of each town to the larger issues of the region and development and migration and living and real estate and all of those things, dealing with the river, pollution, all of that. That's your fate. That's your destiny if you go that way. Now, you have certain distinct things that I noticed when I went visiting down there, visiting San Diego and visiting Tijuana. One thing that surprised me is I had all of the prejudices of the average American about Tijuana. I was living in the 1970s. To go down there and to see those skyscrapers and to realize that Tijuana is the medical tourism center of the world. To hear my neighbors up here talk about, oh yeah, I'm going down there to get a knee replacement, is a glimpse of what can be. Now, you have that downtown, then sitting there next to the border are all of those factories where you're becoming a major manufacturer in medical technology. Well, at the nexus of those two things, I think is your future. Now, this is the reminder, what drove me to think about this, which gave me a vision of this, was the last year with the lockdown and with COVID. There is a revolution that, as Ms. Diaz said, is accelerating, and that is home medical monitoring, home medical diagnostics. It's been predicted for a long time, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen fast now because we've realized that what happened to people that needed cancer checkups during the quarantine? They didn't get to the doctor. We've had thousands of people die because they didn't get medical care because they were not priority to the COVID quarantine. Well, we can't allow this to happen again. We're going to have to start monitoring people, letting them monitor themselves at home, even diagnose things and transfer that data safely and securely and privately to doctors, okay, and to hospitals and to insurance companies. That's about to emerge. It was, I'm actually the co-founder of a medical technology company, and it's a home monitoring device. It's an EKG. We're not in the United States. We're in India, we're in Vietnam, we're in Africa, we're in the Middle East. Why? Because there hasn't been enough demand in the United States until now. But now it's about to explode. And that's going to lead us to the Internet of Medical Things, which I'll get to in a few minutes. But this is an enormous opportunity. The San Diego Tijuana nexus has the potential to be the most important medical community on earth. It's all there. You have UC San Diego as a great medical university. You have the stem cell research facilities, the other research facilities doing the cutting edge stuff, the way we see up here from Stanford and Berkeley. You have manufacturing, which we've lost here because it became too expensive, but you have it. You have the hands-on building of the devices. You have an older, wealthier crowd. To the north, you have a gigantic, hungry, youthful population. To the south, you have the attractive weather. You don't have a train yet, but you have everything else. It's all there. And one of the things that stunned me, you also have a distinct service culture in Tijuana. I mean, people I know that go down for medical care talk about the extraordinary, unbelievable, unmatched service they receive from nurses and hotels and everything else. You know that. One of the things that stunned me was this when I went down and looked into Taylor guitar and realized that Taylor guitar, when you think about luthiers and craftsmen, I thought those expensive guitars, Taylor guitars, would be made in Mexico. And the factories and the robots and the artificial intelligence facilities would be in San Diego. No, it's just the opposite. The craftsmen are in San Diego. The great factory is down south of the border. So we're already seeing a kind of mixing and matching now, a reversing of roles, a sorting out of skills, cross-fertilization of culture. All we need is more speed. We need more cross-border access. We need the ability to move things quickly back and forth, human beings, products. Another area that, by the way, just came to mind that you are becoming a world leader is in distribution. San Diego doesn't have the airport. You got one runway. Tijuana has the great airport. And I think the bridge over the border through customs is a glimpse of where we can go. Malone, remember, we were on a call with Alan Burson, the old border czar, talking about buildings and facilities that could actually straddle the border, like they have up in the Canadian-U.S. border. They have buildings called border houses. They date back 150 years. There's a library that straddles the border. And so you enter in one side in Canada and you walk through the library, and on the other side of the library is the United States. This can actually be done in San Diego and Tijuana. You'd have to have some sort of customs on both sides, but you could have gathering points that straddle the border. The idea that the fence just becomes an artifact and that the two cities become continuous in some very interesting ways is a very powerful vision of the future. That vision, it seems to me, is a multi-trillion-dollar community with 15 million people spreading out, spreading north. Los Angeles seems to be in the eclipse. San Diego has the energy, it has the future. It's the same thing we did here when the South Bay overwhelmed San Francisco, where San Francisco just became the banking for Silicon Valley. And eventually Silicon Valley moved into San Francisco. San Diego has always been the little brother in the shadow of Los Angeles. That no longer has to be. I think you are the port to the Pacific. You have the potential to dominate medical in all of its aspects, from diagnostics and research to monitoring to care to lifestyle development. You can be the center of that. It's all of there. Now, let's talk about the Internet of Medical Things. Now, there's a thing called Malone's Law, which is actually named after me because I created it 25 years ago. Malone's Law says that all technological revolutions take longer than we predict, but then arrive sooner than we're prepared for them. So when I first heard the topic of this conversation was going to be the Internet of Medical Things, my first reaction was, we haven't even gotten to the Internet of regular things yet, which has been predicted since, I don't know, 2010. Well, that's true, but following Malone's Law, it's coming. And when it comes, we're going to go, oh my God. I mean, right now people are saying, where is the Internet of Things? How come my car isn't calling ahead and getting me parking places and getting me lunch reservations and that sort of thing? We're going to wake up one morning. We're already seeing autonomous vehicles heading down the highway. We had a truck just go across the United States without a driver. We're going to see the Internet of Things. It's going to hit us, and we're going to go, oh my God, what happened? When did this occur? It's going to happen overnight. And right behind it is going to be the Internet of Medical Things. And when we took around this device, my company's device, a couple years ago to venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, we were told, we don't see that coming for 10 years. Okay? Well, my prediction is the Internet of Things is going to happen within 5 years. And there's a reason for these delays, and I'll get into that because I want to get into that with Internet of Medical Things. Internet of Medical Things, my guess, the end of the decade. And what that means is you're actually addressing this at the right time, because it's going to take a lot of work to get there. It's going to change the world. One of the things about big data and autonomous devices and smart devices is that we're discovering things that were unknowable before. For example, the science of sampling, of statistics, is almost obsolete now, because now we can test everything. We're learning things about people's health that we could never discover before. Longitudinal research resulting from testing 100 million people. We discover that some event when a person is a child manifests itself when they're 80 years old. We could never find that before. We're going to be buried in discoveries like that and revelations that will present new opportunities. The challenge to the Internet of Medical Things is standardization. Now, I've been covering Silicon Valley as a reporter for, 40 years. So I've seen a number of these revolutions occur. And typically what we have is a couple companies that pioneer the industry, then business money, so venture money starts flowing to those companies, it explodes. You see 100, 200, 500 new startup companies, all trying to capture 50% market share. Then the great shakeout occurs. And then the industry finally reaches its true progression of growth that it was destined to have from the beginning, when everybody decides on common industry standards and protocols. Now, when I was right out of college, I worked for Hewlett Packard, and HP had developed a mini computer, and they were developing printers and other peripheral devices, and they came up with a interface network that would connect all these devices. Well, that was great if you were an HP customer, but HP did something smart, partly because they were the big boy in that industry. They went out and hooked up with IEEE, and they got HPIB, which was that interface bus, standardized for the entire electronics industry. And the IEEE enforced all other companies to join in. The result was the personal computer revolution. You couldn't have had that without that common IEEE 286 interface to connect your printer and your scanner and everything else to your computer. This has gone on with every electronics revolution ever since. That's why, the smartphone, Apple drove it first with their operating system. Once they created a common standard, this Tower of Babel of all these hundreds of companies talking differently, setting different standards of communication and everything else, it all settles down to a common standard. A new generation of companies with building apps can build to that, and everything takes off then. That's going to happen to the Internet of Medical Things. The challenge there is going to be achieving this standardization is going to have to deal with special challenges that haven't been dealt with by these previous revolutions. One of them is privacy. There's nothing more private than one's health records. Up here we have HIPAA. It's an attempt to create a firewall so people cannot penetrate, hackers can't penetrate it, to get your private information. Having devices talking to each other about your medical health is worrisome. It should be worrisome. We should be frightened by it, perhaps terrified. So this is a challenge that IoMT companies are going to have to deal with. Now, code writers, Ms. Diaz mentioned the shortage. There's a shortage of code writers. There's going to be a big shortage of code writers. Luckily, automation, intelligent machines are going to start programming themselves, which is going to accelerate that process. But to really take full advantage of it, for this community down here of San Diego and Tijuana, take advantage of what will be ultimately a medical monitoring revolution, medical electronics revolution, followed by IoMT. You're going to need to create a culture there. You have the beginnings of it. You have it on both sides. You need a few more unicorn companies. I mean, you got Qualcomm, but you need a couple tent poles. The danger is you want to become Silicon Valley. You don't want to become Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon employs 100,000, 200,000 technology people, but they're all working at divisions of Intel and a whole bunch of other companies, tech companies. They're at the mercy of those companies, which are headquartered somewhere else, which means they are the most affected. They're the first ones into recessions and the last ones out, because headquarters is going to lay off the outlying divisions and not touch the main business. So therefore, you don't want to be a peripheral tech community to a larger med tech center somewhere else. You want the brass ring. You want to set the rules. You want to set the pace. You want the headquarters. And that's going to mean a concerted effort between entrepreneurs on both sides. And most of all, it's going to mean money. I mean, ultimately, you need to create a culture of entrepreneurship where when you go into a coffee shop, everybody's talking about their new startup or a new technology they're working on, something like that. But that comes. Right now, you need money. You need capital. You've got all the prerequisites, as I said. But the challenge is going to be, well, in Portland, I was up there once doing a story, and I was standing in a parking lot and a plane flew overhead. And this was a business executive I was talking to, and he looked up and he said, there goes another venture capitalist flying from San Francisco to Seattle. They never land here. You don't want that fate. You need to develop a venture capital community, a big one. Now, that may mean offices of the companies we have here, because the majority of venture capital in North America is in Palo Alto. There's no getting around that. But they're looking for other places. They're looking for new places. They've looked at Austin. They looked at North Carolina. They looked at Albuquerque. They looked at India. And they've given up on India, oddly enough. India has basically been dismissed by American venture capital. You need, if I was going to mention one failing, with all of your strengths down there, if there's one failing you have, is that you haven't educated the rest of the world about how great you are, how extraordinary the experience is to be down there, and the potential of the region. I mean, I would start with a very large advertising and PR budget and explain to the rest of us, show the rest of us what you've accomplished down there. It's a miracle. I mean, it is literally one of the miracles of the final years of the 20th century. Everybody was looking at the dot-com boom up here, when in fact, the real miracle, the enduring miracle, was taking place down there. You need to show the world that, show them the opportunity. You have something in your pocket right now that everybody needs to know about. Everybody, people that are ambitious, you want the point, you want to get to the point where entrepreneurs are coming there, because they want to marinate in the culture of entrepreneurship, medical, and new business creation. There's a turning point that happens. There's a spark that goes off. It's like a chain reaction where all of a sudden you are that world. You are the place to be. And when that happens, the best talent in the world migrates to you. And they're going to love it. I mean, everybody loves when they visit the place. You know, you have the new cuisine, you have the great hotels, you have the great experiences, you have the beaches. The world needs to know about this, not just tourists. You need entrepreneurs and investors to look down at the San Diego Tijuana region, the valley, you know, the river, the whole experience, the history and the modern mixed culture, and see, this is the place that I want to build a great company. Once you get a few of those, the thing takes off by itself. So it's up to you, folks. That's my reporter's notebook. I'll close it now. If you have any questions, but you have a chance, you have an unbelievable chance to grasp the future. I haven't seen anything like this since I was 10 years old.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your words, and for all the audience. I truly recommend Michael's book, El Tercer País, the third country, San Diego and Tijuana, two countries.
And it's in Spanish too. People don't realize it's in Spanish too.
Yes, it's in Spanish, also Spanish and English. I've talked to several people, and I always mention Michael's book should be a textbook in our region. It really shows the value of what and the uniqueness of the region where we live in. So thank you, Michael. Thank you for sharing with us your thoughts. And now we're going to open the mics for any questions, not only for Michael, but for Gustavo and Maritza also. Please feel free. I will ask Patty if we have any questions on Facebook or in the other platforms, let us know. But I think we're going to have also questions on the chat on the chat box. But also, if somebody wants to basically talk and open their mic and have a direct questions, please go ahead.
Hi, Michael. This is Keith. I work with Maritza at IoMT, and I was particularly interested by one of your comments, which was, "Don't be the Portland, Oregon." And I was curious about your thoughts on the binational opportunity we have that distinguishes us, perhaps. If you look at the leadership and innovation around life sciences, biotech, med devices, there's only one or two places in the US and that are providing that leadership. So, and San Diego is one of them. So with that already accomplished, and many of those leading companies headquartered here, do you think we've got a good chance of avoiding being the next Portland?
Yeah, I think you have an excellent chance, mostly because of the maquiladoras, the factories down in Tijuana. Portland's problem was it was basically offered cheap land. It's not near any great university. All Oregon's great universities are in the middle of the state, and this was up in Portland. It was just, a nice community, and all the companies moved up there. But they're not doing any original research. They're basically just fab. And, it's hard to build a strong business community with just one arm like that. I think the advantage that you all have is that you covered most of the squares. You've gone all the way from core research at the very top end of the food chain, all the way down to manufacturing and distribution. That's a hell of a head start. And I can't, Boston ran into the problem. It literally ran the digital world. It was leading the electronics revolution up until the end of the 60s, mid 70s. But it was missing certain things. It had, it had Harvard and MIT and all of that. It had great companies, but it never built that entrepreneurial culture. It wasn't in the Boston mentality. A good friend of mine grew up there, and he said, the problem with Boston is that they're fatalists. If things go bad, they go, well, it was destined to be that way. The mills went away and we started something else. We'll come up with something new. They accepted failure in the wrong way. The reason Silicon Valley won was because we only accepted good failure, which was you worked really, really hard and somebody else came up with a better technology ahead of you. We'll give you more money to start another company. There was an acceptance of failure, but only good failure. And we had this natural entrepreneurial fervor because we were a young community, brand new. We didn't have that much history. You have built into your culture down there, especially on the Mexican side, a strong entrepreneurial culture and attitude. And that can be cultivated. To begin with, that is an incredible advantage. Plus, like I said, you cover the entire chain from basic research all the way down to distribution. Those are two enormous advantages that I don't see anywhere else.
Flavio, we go ahead.
Hi, hello, my presentation. As economic development organizations in Tijuana or Baja California, what do you think should be our priorities in order to evolve our entrepreneurial capabilities towards more higher value-added processes? So right now, the majority of our capabilities are in the very low-end value-added part. How do we evolve into, what would be the priorities as economic development organizations and the role of universities?
Okay, well, first of all, get the kids into grad school. The more PhDs in electrical engineering and computer science and all that you have, usually the better. You don't want too many because they're not real good at building businesses, but you need that talent to create the new stuff. I think, and I should talk about this just for a moment. We have a distinct problem in business creation, new business creation right now. And it's been going on probably for 10 years. And that is, we're very good, and I'm speaking from Silicon Valley, we are very good at starting companies, unmatched any place on earth. We're very good at angel investing. We have a lot of people that got very rich around here on startups, and they want to put money back in. They want to get up to the craps table one more time. So it's not hard around here to get the angel round done. You can raise $10 million in this town with a handful of phone calls if you know the right people. The next step, though, is Series A. That's when you got to go out to the VCs with an actual business. You have to have customers, you have to have a product or, a prototype and prospective customers. You have to have talent, and you have to have some sort of distribution system in place for sell it and market it, retail it. Okay. That gulf right there, that gap between angel and Series A has gotten wider and wider and wider over the years. It used to be you could go to a VC and get your next $15 million to get the company, on its feet and going. However, with the dot-com bubble bursting, VCs, they lost a lot of money for their investors and their funds. I'm one. And so they became very conservative. So the VCs, the angels are still here. The VCs started moving down the food chain to the point that, and they began gathering bigger and bigger funds. So what used to be a $50 million venture fund is now $5 billion. Okay, well, they don't have the bandwidth to give out $10 million increments or $5 million increments. They give out $150 million increments to startups and instantly turn them into unicorns. Well, they're not only conservative about who they invest in, but they're also very conservative about risk. Increasingly, they don't want another debacle like 2001. So they're investing in sure things. I mean, I had somebody from a VP of a former president of Silicon Valley Bank say to me, I don't even know why people go to venture capital anymore. If you're eligible to get venture capital money now, then you don't need the money. Just get a line of credit from our bank. Why would you give up 30% of the company when you're already going to win? You're already a success story. So that's a real problem. It's a real problem. And I saw this during the Apple iPhone boom, when they opened up the Apple store and you could develop, sell apps and everything else. I literally would walk into my local Starbucks and there'd be 15 tables, all with each one with 3 people, all coming up with a new app for the iPhone to start a business. Okay. A year later, they were all gone, and most of them had died. They had raised money from family and friends, maybe from angels, but they never made that big step. And that's really hurting entrepreneurship in the United States right now. I have no doubt that you can find a lot of money down there for angel investing. And I have no doubt that if you have a great company like Qualcomm, you're going to be able to raise those big tranches of $100, $200 million. But those $10 to $15 million Series A ones, those are the deal killers. And if you can set up an apparatus to deliver that kind of money to startups, you will become a magnet for new startups from around the world. We mentioned Oxford. Oxford Entrepreneurs has 8,000 members, and they all were excited, and there were hundreds and hundreds of companies that got started. They all raised angel money. The only ones that survived were the ones that moved to Silicon Valley, because they could not get the culture of England, where the attitude as an entrepreneur is just a shopkeeper and a state class A, and Series A money wasn't there. So that's your financial challenge if you're gonna win this game.
Thank you, Michael, for the answer. Now we have Don Pepe Gallicot. Don José, adelante.
Estoy aquí, nada más no estoy en la pantalla. I want to say something. First, I have to salute my friend Burham, my compadre Burham, because he came with the idea to bring you, Mike, to talk about you, to talk about the border, to show you. And when we went over there and we talked to you, you was assimilating many, many ideas. And I am very proud, I'm very happy that at this moment, we are assimilating your ideas. You are bringing us, you bring a beautiful book, very important, very interesting, but also you're bringing a new hope for the area, new sources of business. So thank you for all your work. Everybody should read your book. Make everybody read in English or Spanish or in Russian. We can do it. And Borja, maybe you have been the promoter of many, many important things. This one also. So un abrazo and my appreciation. Thank you.
Well, you inspired me. I was telling the organizers here that a year ago, I spent January and February writing about 18 hours a day. And in the back of my mind was, I kept telling myself, I promised Pepe Gallico I'd have this thing done in time for Innovadora. And when I was every time I was about to give up on that book, I felt you prodding me from behind to fulfill my promise. So, and it was an honor to do it with you and to be part of Innovadora.
Thank you, Mike. Un abrazo.
Thank you. And lastly, we have Arturo Serrano. Adelante, Arturo.
Thank you, Michael, for very interesting presentation. I just want to mention that your book and Mary Walshak's book is part of my references in my graduate courses at UABC. It was very important for my students to know what's happening in the region. Let me tell you also that besides what you mentioned regarding the importance of the BioMed hub and medical tourist hub, we have in our region, particularly Tijuana, a creative and cultural industries hub that is a world player right now. So I think that the innovation area or ecosystem of technology and innovation and creative industries would be an important asset to create this ecosystem that you mentioned. And I think that it is in that direction. And I think it is very important for us to have your book, which is really a reference for us to understand better the place where we live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you know, writing the book, one of the reasons it got longer is, as Malone will tell you, it's about twice as long as we originally planned. But as I was writing the history of the region, I was struck there are a lot of histories of San Diego, but there was a general shortage of just readable histories of Tijuana. So I felt obliged to put that in there too. If I was going to create a context for the story, I had to tell the story of Tijuana. It's a credible story. I hope that part of the book gets disseminated out there to more people. I think it'll be very useful to folks in Tijuana, school kids and that sort of thing. And by the way, a shout out to Hector. Yes, go Broncos. His daughter just graduated from Santa Clara University.
And lastly, well, I think we have an opportunity for one last question or comment. We have Weiss Walter. Weiss, please go ahead.
Oh, hello, Michael. Well, firstly, I'd like to say I think you hit every point right on the dot. And there's one question I have for you, at least your opinion. You mentioned that Mexico should take the opportunity to put in, their budget, whatever, to a PR campaign and show the world who we are, right? Now, if we go back to, well, by the way, I'm president of Creative Software International, or Digital here in Mexico. We're coders. What we do is custom software development for most of the fields that you mentioned, by the way. And as an individual company, what would you suggest if we don't have the government or clusters such as this one actually putting in the effort or the money or the funds to promote Mexico or to promote our individual companies here in Tijuana? What would you suggest as an individual company we do to actually tell the world we're here, we're players?
Well, interesting question. I would, depends on how much resource you have, but I would put somebody up here talking. One of the interesting rules of Silicon Valley is that if somebody calls you and you don't have a solution for them or an answer for them, you connect them with a couple other people. You move it along. So when you come to the Valley and start talking to people, you're going to get connected by 3 or 4 degrees of separation to somebody that can help you and raise your visibility, your profile here. A forgotten advantage you all have, and I hear this over and over, is that you're nearby. You speak English. You're in the same time zone. You're a day's drive away. You're an hour plane flight away. That's a big difference from Bangalore or Hanoi or Rio or Sao Paulo. I mean, Mexico is so tight to the United States that your resources are not being sufficiently used, like code writing talent, by the North. And you need a presence up here, talking to people, getting to know people. And when they start thinking, well, who can I get to write some? We need this app written, we need the code written, and we got to do it quickly. They think of you, because you're going to be at least as good as anybody up here, and you're going to be a hell of a lot more cost effective. And that's what they're looking for. And that gets me thinking. One other point, your comments have been, how do we further promote the Tijuana Baja region? I'm beginning to think the time has now come that you begin to promote the San Diego, Tijuana, Baja region, that you talk as the third country. You speak with one voice, that you are a unified collection of talents and skills, and you're working together. And when you're a business and you want to deal with the region, you are dealing with the entire region. I think that needs to be your message from here on out. I mean, people, hundreds of thousands of people cross the border there every day. They're walking over the bridge to get on airplanes. You are an integrated region. I think it's time to start presenting yourself in that manner. And that enables Tijuana to piggyback on the reputation of San Diego, and enables San Diego to look, exciting and young again, and combines all of these resources and talents you have. Like I said, the whole food chain from core research down to manufacturing. I think that's the message you need to start telling the world now. The time has come. That future's here.
Well, thank you so much. I think that's exactly what you hit it right on the head.
Good. Well, I'm glad I didn't make a complete fool out of myself with my ignorance. When I look at you guys, I see Silicon Valley in 1965. It's all there. You're ready to go. You're the only place I've seen like that, ever.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your thoughts, and to all for your questions, of all the audience. And I just want to close with a remark related to Walter White's comment. That's what we do on the Tijuana EDC. Today, with the leadership of Maritza, is we're creating this task force of emerging industries, where we are putting our effort in these new technologies and how to take out the name of Tijuana and San Diego as this new technology hub. This is what we're starting. And this is the reason why we have Michael today with us as a starting point. So we don't only need to put the word out there, but also we have to put our word in our city. We need to have leaders, more leaders, and have an opinion about this new trend. So we can create public policies, and we can start putting the seeds there so we can have value propositions there. So that's what we're trying to do. And with Maritza and with Patricia, our executive director, and all the team under the Tijuana EDC, together with allies as Gustavo de la Fuente in the cross-border coalition and the San Diego EDC with Nikia, with all this team, we are trying to build this. And today we're starting this effort. July, we will have a roundtable discussing more about this. So that's what we're trying to do. And Maritza, Gustavo, any closing remarks before we go?
From my side, Michael, thank you so much. I want to challenge you on the Internet of Medical Things timeframe. I think it's much faster than what you think. I would love to have a follow-up and talk with a couple of companies that are already doing something very interesting here in Tijuana in that space. But let's build this, continue writing this book. I think the new story that we're going to write together is going to be phenomenal. And I would like to close it with this. You mentioned a lot of the perception. What I call the gap between perception and reality is opportunity. Let's together leverage that opportunity for our region. Thank you again for joining us. Everyone, thank you as well. Gustavo, did you have any last comment? But that's all from my end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maritza. Once again, I want to thank Michael for your contributions. Again, every time you speak, you give me a new kind of nugget of information and of truth, things I consider to be truth. I think that for our region, yes, there's a lot of ingredients. We have the ingredients for the great recipe. I think it's also about the framework or frameworks that we use. And sometimes we might get lost in the frameworks or as to how to do it. And so your knowledge, Michael, and of knowledge of other people you know, potentially in the Bay Area, could help us speed up some of the things that we need to start doing in earnest, right? You know, a little more structured than we have to make this happen and to really create a roadmap. And I think we need that. We need that roadmap. So thank you.
Happy to help.
And well, I don't want to end up today's topic without asking for a couple of words from Mr. Burnham. He is a critical part of this, and I know I'm putting you in the hot spot, Malon, but your name has been in this session several times, so at least share something with us. Your mic. We don't hear you.
Malin, we can't hear you.
Yeah, you need to open your mic, Malin.
Sorry about that. You know, being a relatively new resident in Tijuana for the last 5 years, I got to tell you, I'm very excited about this, and having followed Smart Border and all of the activities they're related to, and Michael's book, I really believe everything that has been said today, especially from you, Michael, that Tijuana is on the cusp of greatness. Northern Baja is on the edge of greatness here. There's so many resources and so much to bring about. I'm excited to see what the future does and happy to help in any way I can. So thank you all for, you know, making this, you know, a very active conversation and continuing to drive it within the community.
Thank you, David. Mr. Burnham, we're ready for you.
Can anybody hear me?
We hear you, Malin. Good.
Okay. I'm sorry, but the words came 45 minutes ago across my screen saying that the host muted me. So that's why I haven't been heard. You know, this is very, very stimulating to me. Of course, I've known Michael for some time now, but I am going to suggest that somehow, and maybe Gustavo, maybe it's cross-border group, could could take could cut Michael's talk into about 15 different chapters, and each one of them we could show and write out his comments and make sure they're given to the right people in the greater San Diego Tijuana area. He's got all these ideas, and he tells us the difference between San Diego Tijuana in invitations compared to Silicon Valley, compared to Portland, compared to wherever. And we need to take advantage of his knowledge. And I don't disagree with anything that he says today. And so I think we need to chop this up in chapters and get a different crowd of people to take each one of them and move this thing, not just talk about it. We've been talking for a long time. And as far as I care, Michael, put it in spades today. So let's make sure we know what those spades are in smaller bites and move forward. So thank you very much, Michael, and everybody else for putting on this program.
Thank you, Mr. Bergman.
Thank you, Malon.
Thanks, Malon.
And Michael, last thing is, again, to say thank you. Thank you for supporting the region, for sharing with us your experience. As I mentioned in our last chat, we would like to invite you to Tijuana. Hopefully we can have you in the area sooner than later in the next following months, so we can continue this lovely discussion of today. There's a lot of things to talk about, and hopefully we can have you here soon.
That'd be great. Look forward to it. There's already things in preparation, so that's very likely. And folks, remember the Silicon Valley rule. If you need connections, call somebody, get a hold of me. And if I can't help you, I'll get you to two people that probably can. If they can't, we'll get you somebody eventually.
Thank you, Michael. And we're basically finishing our program of today. For the Tijuana EDC, it was a pleasure to have all of you joining us. We will replicate and we will promote Michael's discussion of today with more people, and hopefully we can see each other again in our next activity, which will be in July. We will have a roundtable that will be headed by Maritza, continuing the discussion of this emerging technologies and the regional technology hub. Thank you again for all. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.